Hi and welcome back to the channel. This is a brief update on the progress I'm making on the repairs of the sill section and the rest of the splash panel. And I think it'll be quite a while before I actually put the splash panel back on. Now what I'm trying to do over the past day or so, I haven't had much time to do it, but I'm gradually getting there, is to remove this sill extension panel, which has been home manufactured, or at least by a garage, so we can, where has it gone? It's gone somewhere. Replace it with a new lower sill section, and more on that a bit later. Well, I'll tell you now. This flange that you can see here shouldn't be there. There shouldn't be one of those flanges. So I've measured up and I can just cut it off so that it looks original once I get it in a position to weld it on. So the reason this has been a bit of a pig, and I'll get the camera off the tripod in a minute and show you a bit closer, is that there are a lot of bead welds, which you'd expect, where this sill panel, lower sill panel, is attached to the sill panel that runs alongside the door. So yeah, you can see a bit better if I take off the tripod. Okay, if you can see just down here, there was about a bead of welds going across there, joining this part of the sill to this sill extension. And so what I've done is I've gradually and carefully ground out the weld so that I could get a chisel, metal chisel in there, and just split the weld. And as you can see, I've just started to do it at the back there. If I just, I don't know, you can see that weld is starting to split. Now I think at some point I'm going to have to get an angle grinder at the back because I can see where the weld is. If we have a look, I know it's a bit awkward to film this. Okay, you can see it from the bottom. And I've actually carefully cut this out. That was another bead of weld there, and I've ground that back, and I've cut through there with an angle grinder, and unfortunately I've gone a bit too far and cut through the this sill, but that's not going to be a problem. I can weld that back up, and I cut here as well to get this bottom part off, which is here. But as I say, I'm splitting the weld at the moment, but you can, if you look very carefully, see where that weld is at the back. Now I've stripped all the under seal off. So what I might do is just try and angle grind that so I can release this, and I'm going to have a bit of a pig of a game getting this off at this end. So what I might do is cut from where this sill is welded on here, just cut it back a little bit, and then modify the sill extension I've got to fit. And that's the only way I can think about doing it, because I don't really want to take this bloody outrigger off and then weld it back on. So I'm going to have a bit of a play about with that, and then all we need to do really is remove these welds here, just there, and that's going to be easy to do because these are such bad welds that get something in between there, and most of them just snap off. So that's going to be fairly easy to do. But anyway, I'll carry on with this and come back when I've made a bit more progress. So I've been doing a little bit of work in the background and I've removed the majority of the metal that needs replacing, apart from one section which I'll show you in a minute. I did it off camera because a lot of it was very fiddly and the chassis outrigger was getting in the way. So I've made a little compromise in one of the sections that I've cut out, but it's not going to affect the integrity of the repairs. But again, I'll show you that in a short while. So just down here to my right is all of the metal I've cut out, and it's a reasonable amount, and some of it was a little bit more tricky than others, and I've used a combination of drill, finger sander, a grinder stroke cutter and a Dremel to get into some tight areas where I had to cut through the section under the sill. So what the upshot of this is that I've got around about certainly 10 and probably 11 sections to weld in, and maybe a bit more because the interior in the front section here inside the sill hasn't been repaired properly, and you can actually see daylight in one of the repairs, which again I'll show you in a minute. So that's where we are, and that's why I haven't covered all of the cutting out of this metal, etc. But in the videos to come I will cover how I go about making these repairs, which I think is probably more interesting than me cutting stuff out. So after removing the door hinge, the next thing I removed was the sill section, which is here, and there are several parts to this. There's this part, and this one is from underneath here, which I'll show you in a minute, and that hole there corresponds to that hole for the hinge bolt. And then there's two more little bits, this one and this one, which actually fits, as you can see, just there. And that's the one I had to use a Dremel on to get it out, because there wasn't enough room for any of my other tools to cut it out. So that's all done, and that's where I did make a little bit of a compromise, and I'll see if I can get a decent picture of that now. Okay, so as you can see, this piece here was cut out from there, and I actually used a small angle grinder to get in there, and as you can see I made a slight mistake where I've cut through the actual sill. So I'll weld that up properly, and that's not going to affect the integrity, as I said. So I've cut down there. Again, this needs to be tidied up a little bit before I actually weld in new metal. And the compromise I've made, because I can't get up to this point here to remove any more metal, is that I'll modify the sill repair and cut it short and just weld it across this line here, because this metal's good and that metal is part of the old repair section. So otherwise I'd have to probably remove the outrigger or undo the bolts on holding the body to the chassis and lift it up in order to do it, and I don't think all that work is necessary to make a good repair. So there's probably a little bit of metal to remove just there, and then we're good to go and start welding in the new sill section once I've modified the replacement. The other thing I'll show you here is there is a repair section that's been welded in and it's not very good, and there's a hole, as you can probably see just there, and that goes straight through into the interior of the car, and any moisture or rain or muck splashed up by the wheels will actually go down there and potentially cause more rot. This section here, which I'll show you from the inside now, is this part here, and that's not been very well welded in place, and so I'm going to cut off that section and replace it with a new piece. I mean, there's nothing wrong with this metal, but it's just not being done very well. I think I can make a better job of it. So the next thing I had to do to remove this homemade sill repair is to remove it from there. So I had to cut along with the angle grinder to break all these really crappy welds, and then I could remove that bottom sill section. Then I had to remove this section you see here, which was welded up there, as you can see, like that, and there was actually silicone sealant partly holding that in place from the inside. Then we had that part of the access panel, which was, I think it's the original part, and as I said in an early part of this video, the replacement was actually welded in over the top of this. So what else have I removed? So the other thing I removed was this piece of metal here. There are more bits to it than that, but that was welded in there, I presume, as a strengthener to go between this part of the A-post and this sill section. Another section I will be cutting out, if I just zoom in a little bit. Whoops, there we go. And this is where the hinge bolt goes in, and there are two other fixings which I'm not going to touch. So once I've put in the sill section, I've got a reference point and I can bolt in the hinge using the other fixings, and then cut this section out, and then I've got a guide point of where to weld this back in. So I'll refabricate this part. So what else have I got left to cut out? And I'm just pondering whether to cut, as I said in the previous video, I'm going to cut that section out there, and also up here. I don't know how many sections to do that in, but as you can see, it's rotten there, and I need to reinstate a lip going all the way down that section there. And there's one or two other little bits and pieces, like the top here, for example. That's corroded away, and I might just cut a little bit of a section out of here and take it up to there probably. And it's just little bits and pieces. I mean, that shouldn't take too long, but it's figuring out, to be honest, what order to do these jobs in, because I need to maintain some access, especially with that bottom panel there, in order to weld it in properly. So I'm starting to ramble again, and rather than make this video too long, I think I'll wrap it up there, and in the next video I will get started on welding in some repair sections and perhaps fabricating a few things to do those repairs. Please like and subscribe, it really helps the channel. There'll be lots more to come, and we can get into some fabrication in the next video. So again, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.